And they wondered if a black talk radio station would work in Southern California.
Y'all did it!
Well, KBLA Talk 1580 toasts its 3rd anniversary on Juneteenth, and you're invited to celebrate with us.
Hey, Travis Smiley, y'all the bomb!
All you have to do is go to KBLA1580.com right now and sign up. Admission is free, but mandatory, and space is limited. Once we reach capacity, we'll have to cut off the online registration, but it's open right now.
Oh my God!
So don't delay.
Thank you guys for being the best at what you do.
Log on to KBLATalk1580.com right now and register to join us for an afternoon of good music, good people, and good vibes.
Happy anniversary.
Wednesday, June 19th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. We will provide the food and drink, but be sure to bring your low-back chairs, blankets, and your personal picnic baskets.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Let's celebrate 3 years of being the most trusted, credible, and reliable source of news and information.
We love you, KBLA.
We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're black and stride again.
Black and stride again. Happy anniversary.
You're not making eye contact or offering a smile. Should have known when we broke up that you'd be such a child. I'll be okay another day. Right now I just think on how it was when you and me were so happy. Never could have imagined all the pain, all the people bringing up our age, saying we were young and poor and saying
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Monday. I am prayerful that this is a mindful Monday and not a messy Monday. You are officially tapped into KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to First Things First with Dominique DiPrima. And if you're wondering, that doesn't sound like Dominique DiPrima, you would be correct. I am your guest host for today. My name is Dr. Sholanda Sunshine Crawford. I am the host of the Dr. Sunshine Show, which airs right here on KBLA on Sunday mornings from 8 to 9 a.m. And I have the honor and the privilege of sitting in for Dominique this morning. As some of you are aware, she is traveling right now to the motherland. Africa, way across the seas, but fear not, she will be joining us and on air live from Africa. So she will be back in the seat, just not in the building tomorrow and for the remainder of the week. But for today, thank you so much for having me here on First Things First. And we are in our last hour of the morning, the last hour with me, that is, this morning before we move on to Tavis Smiley. But thanks for rolling with me. We have a very special hour lined up, a wonderful topic that I am excited and anticipating diving into. Yes, today we are going to, actually, I would like to introduce my next guest for the hour. Her name is Dr. Gloria Morrow, and she is the CEO of GM Psychological Services, which is one of, she is one of the nation's leading clinical psychologists. And, that's right up my alley, as I too am a clinical psychologist. She has appeared as a frequent guest on CNN and a variety of other national TV shows and radio shows for that matter. Dr. Gloria has authored several books. We're going to dive into some of those titles this morning. Listen here. She is a producer, a playwright, a filmmaker, and is in the pre-production stage of her first feature film, 3 Times a Lady. She has so many hats that she's wearing. I love it. She's committed to her work around spirituality and recovery and to equip the faith community and mental health professionals to help hurting people. Now, as I am a psychotherapist myself, I am extremely excited to jump into conversation and dialogue with Dr. Gloria Morrow. Dr. Gloria, welcome to First Things First this morning. How are you?
Well, good morning. Good morning. It's so good to hear your voice, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking time out of what is obviously a busy schedule to stop by.
Too busy.
Yes, but I've heard for most of my life, busy is good. Busy is good,
Yeah.
and idle hands, that's the workshop that we don't want to be in. So thank God for busy seasons and work to do.
Amen.
But as a clinical psychologist, I'm pretty sure that self-care is a part of your regimen, yeah?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I believe in it.
Yes. So, Dr. Gloria, I am excited to talk with you this morning and to unpack a whole lot of things this hour because your wheelhouse, as I delve into some of the work that you've done, a lot of the work you do is around spirituality and recovery, which is what I said, and helping faith leaders and change agents in the arena of mental health. So today, and I should tell our listeners, today we're going to be talking about helping the helpers, how ministers, activists, and counselors can practice self-care. Are you a minister, Dr. Morrow?
Well, I tell everybody I'm not a minister, but I do minister.
I was going to say, I have a good feeling I'm going to be challenging you on that answer this morning. I am going to give a little pushback, and we've only just begun. I think you're going to be hard pressed not to be a minister and help us, help the ministers, help the helping people, help folks. That's what ministry is, as long as,
That's what it is.
That's what it is. That's what it is. So I
Yes.
definitely want to jump into that. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us what you want us to know about you.
Well, first of all, I'm just so excited to be with you on this show. And I think Dominique was really correct in saying that, the two of us would be really great together.
I think so.
Yes, because of our backgrounds, I just think it's wonderful. So the things I just want to say about myself, I've just been serving people for 3 decades.
Wow.
And I've tried to work with people in different capacities. So I started out in academia and then went into clinical work while I was in academia, and then found myself loving the arts and wanting to do more in that arena. So I went from a director of behavioral health to retiring from that last year and just opening myself up to more opportunities. I started writing stage plays because I really felt like we can use the art to help people to understand some of themselves and some of the issues that they face and to see solutions through our work. And so that's kind of how I started. And then from that, I have gone into writing film and producing film. So I'm just excited about where God has me right now.
Yeah. And I think, I love using drama to draw the point.
Yeah.
I don't know, Dr. Gloria, does art imitate life or does life imitate art? Either way, either way. I'm happy that you have chosen to bring to the forefront through imaging some of the points that you are trying to make. You've been at this for 3 decades. And I've been at this for only half of that time, which means that you've been in this game for a long time. I know that I've seen a lot of change in trend in, the 15 years that I've been in it. I've seen a change in
Hmm.
trend. What brought you to this work to begin with 3 decades ago? And I'd love to hear from your opinion how the landscape has changed, because you and I are both passionate about eliminating stigma. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and so where have you seen, and what have you seen in the change of the landscape over the course of your career?
Well, when I first got into the field, I was sort of demanded to do it because people
Wow.
would always
Mm-hmm.
come to me for help. And I
Right.
didn't want to be a psychologist. I wanted to be a lawyer. And I thought that's the direction I would go in, and then found that this was just my well space. I was always helping people, always talking to people. I could be on an airplane with a stranger, and somehow they would start talking to me, and the next thing, I'm doing a therapy session on a plane. So I said, this must be where I'm called to be. So I went into the profession thinking, oh, I'll go get my education, then I'll start practicing, and it'll be great. But I learned, first of all, that our people are really struggling, especially in our community, because of
Yes.
what we have experienced in the mental health system. And I think I got really, really excited when I became exposed to some things that we could do to help people who are needing help but not feeling comfortable with our system. And I
Mm,
participated in a project where the name of the project was We Ain't Crazy. We just living in a crazy system.
I love it. I love it.
And I just learned, we've got to help our people to feel more comfortable, but at the same time, we've got to start becoming mentors and helping young people to get into the field who understand the community.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we are helping them to have those services that they can really feel like people understand their worldview, their perspective, and that we're all not alike, and really be able to look at our within group differences. So that's
Within
where I
group
think the
differences.
field has
Yeah.
emerged.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I am happy to be in conversation with you this morning. I think that we have a lot of enlightenment to bring to the airwaves this morning, and I think together we can begin to unpack some pretty important and key things. Again, thanks for joining me. We're going to push the pause button for just a second, but we have more to unpack. This is First Things First with Dominique DiPrima, and I am Dr. Sholanda Crawford here with Dr. Gloria Morrow. Hold on. We'll be right back.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Pardon the interruption. It's me, Tavis Smiley, here to remind you that we are now just days away from our historic Climate Justice Symposium live on C-SPAN this coming Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center. We are now pushing capacity. So if you plan to join us, stop procrastinating and get to KBLA1580.com right now and register. Attendance is free, but registration is mandatory. Black folk are flying into LA from all across the country to be in the room when we go live to the world with a stage full of black brilliance on the eve of Juneteenth. And you live here, you better get to KBLA1580.com right now and claim your seat.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Kind of like choosing Derek Jeter as the pinch hitter for your baseball team.
Jeter, you're in. We need a home run.
I'll give it a try. I've swung a bat once or twice.
That's out of here.
Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC. 1 in 3 children born today will get diabetes. This sad prediction by the Centers for Disease Control will come true if millions of Americans don't improve their lifestyles, especially by changing what they eat, how much they eat, and how active they are every day. Every 23 seconds, another American gets diabetes. Stop diabetes before it starts. To learn more, contact the American Diabetes Association or download our free diabetes education programs at learningaboutdiabetes.org.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
But it's just too real. It's hard to admit it. I guess that I will. Oh no. I guess I a little I am a little might a little might be a little quite a little I'm quite a little in love with you. I might just be in love, just a tad. Brought you up to my dad. He said to go easy, don't play with the feeling. So we're going easy, not rushing with love, not too much. You make a promise, 'cause love is a deal. If you were honest, then all will be well. Think you're about this, so tell me how you feel. 'Cause I'll let you know. I guess I'm a little, I am a little, might a little pepper upper, pep me upper, a little lightweight, happy, put you in a good mood for Mindful Mondays. Welcome forward. You are tapped in to First Things First with Dominique DiPrima. I am sitting in for Dominique today. My name is Dr. Sholanda Sunshine Crawford. I am the host here at KBLA of the Dr. Sunshine Show. You can tap in and tune in with me Sunday mornings from 8 to 9 a.m. right here on KBLA. Thanks for coming forward. I am on right now with our very special guest, Dr. Gloria Morrow. Dr. Gloria, listen, it's funny. We're talking about basically what we're diving into is the stigma that is connected to mental health, specifically in the Black community. And I'll share with you that my dissertation research, which happened in 2014, was on the willingness, the necessity of the integration of spirituality and psychotherapy in the Black community, right? And this is in your wheelhouse too, right? So what I found in my research is two things. One, we already know, and that is that the church is still the beacon in the Black community. That's number one. Number two, Number two, I found that though, this is 2014, though Black people specifically were willing to consider the idea of diving into mental health as an issue for themselves personally, there was a lot of skepticism around it because of the system at large that we are in. And that's what you were talking about. The system is scary, Dr. Morrow. It's the system. Because there has been so much disparity in inequality, not just, in America, but definitely in the arena of mental health. So tell me a little bit about your work in the arena of mental health with and faith leaders, ministry, church, etc.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. We have really not been given the best quality of care. When we think about the fact that we've had to deal with the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, where people were allowed to really die. And so we don't participate in clinical trials. We don't trust the system.
Come on.
And it causes us to try to deal with our own issues either through the church or through all the self-medicating that we can do. And so it's definitely important for us to know that help is available, and it needs to be culturally responsive care. And that's what I've been doing. I've been training and doing curriculum for cultural competency trainings for institutions and organizations throughout the country for the past 10 years, trying to educate and help us to stop with this cookie-cutter approach that we have with dealing with people. Because what's happened, you know, when I first started school, we had one multicultural course, and that course was where we generalized every group and said, if you're African-American, if you're Latino, if you're Asian, if you're Indian, this is what you need to do. But there's so much diversity within every one of our communities. Everybody in our community is not a Christian. Everybody in our community does not think the same way.
Correct.
Has not had the same lived experiences.
Right.
And so we have to really, be careful with how we're providing services because, you know, there's a problem when I go to see a therapist and they have this cookie-cutter approach that they're going to use with me or anybody who looks like me. So that's one issue. But the other issue with the faith community sometimes has been the problem. And I love God, and I love the faith community.
Yeah.
But let's keep it real. When we hear messages from pulpits that say if people are struggling in this way, that their faith is weak, there's sin in their lives, all they need to do is pray it out, and they'll be okay. And I go to churches, and I speak at all kinds of events, conferences, sometimes Sunday morning services. I talk about the fact that God uses people to help people. And if we're going to get better, we're going to have to be open to seeking help sometimes outside the church because pastors and faith leaders are not always equipped with the professional skills they need to provide these kinds of services.
Right.
So I work with organizations and I work with churches to help them to have a good Rolodex, and that's, I know it's a dated term, but to have a good listing of therapists who are culturally responsive to communities of faith who can provide those services when they need it. The pastor should have it on speed dial so that when someone comes in, which is inevitable, with these kinds of issues, after they talk to them and pray with them, that they send them on to somebody that can help them with their mental health challenges.
So I absolutely love that you take that position. And the reason why I love that you take that position is, first of all, well, I love the you take on that position because prayer, just like faith, without works is nothing. We have to do something so we can pray, but sometimes the blessing comes in the resource. Sometimes the blessing is in the resource. Now, I will say that back in 2014, when I was doing that research, the trend was that faith leaders and members of congregations were open to receiving mental health services, either through the church or in the community. They were open. But since then, in the decades since then, that is really shifting. So, and I will say that the pandemic really assisted us in that in a great way. So obviously there were tons of negative things about the pandemic, but it did open a lot of people up to the idea that maybe I can or should get some help in the arena of mental health. But I don't want to gloss over a very important issue that you brought to the forefront, and that is that in churches, we are taught to pray about it, leave it at the altar, and let God do his miraculous work. And Dr. Morrow, this is how I came into the field, because I was praying about it and nothing was was happening. And I discovered, long story short, that, in my family, I'm praying for family members with real diagnoses. So therefore, prayer was an answer to maybe lead me to a resource or keep me connected with God. But my family members needed to get that diagnosis so that they could get the help that they needed. And
absolutely,
it's why I love that you are in the trenches, breaking this stigma. And I would love to find out more from you, what your challenges have been as you are trying to encourage people, even with all the differences in the culture and in religion and spirituality. I would love to talk more about what your challenges have been. So, Dr. Morrow, stay with me. Wonderful and enlightening conversation, and more when we come forward.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Thank you for joining us on a Monday, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Now, here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden is scheduled to meet with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg today at the White House. Stoltenberg has also meetings scheduled this week with Secretary of State Antony Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. In addition, he'll meet with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, as well as members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Senate NATO Observer Group. We're now learning a member of the NFL Kansas City Chiefs is finding himself in more legal trouble this offseason. Defensive lineman Isaiah Buggs was arrested for the second time in a month after being booked on a domestic violence and burglary charge in Alabama Sunday morning. The 27-year-old African-American player was released on a $5,000 bond. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Is this the tether?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NBA Finals are back in action tonight in Boston. Game 5 between the Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. The Celtics are up 3-1. A win gives the Celtics an NBA record 18th championship, one more than the Lakers. Tip-off time tonight at 5:30 on ABC. NBA Hall of Famer Charles Barkley said he's retiring from TV work after next season. The 61-year-old Barkley said the 2024-25 NBA season will be his last. Barkley said he has no plans to move on to another network. Barkley has been with TNT's Emmy Award-winning Inside the NBA studio show for 24 years. The Sparks fall to 4-10 in the WNBA after losing by 13 to the Atlanta Dream. The Dodgers shut out Kansas City yesterday, but they lost shortstop Mookie Betts for several weeks. Betts suffered a broken hand when he was hit by a pitch in the 7th inning. Betts will be examined by a hand specialist today. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses, like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company. The City of Los Angeles Civil Rights Department and its Reparations Advisory Commission invites you to join us on LA's Road to Reparations. Join us in person on Juneteenth, Wednesday, June 19th, 10 a.m. at All People Community Center, 822 East 20th Street, Los Angeles, California, 90111, to learn the results of Black Experience Survey, focus groups, and one-on-one interviews, and to learn how you can share your input to develop LA City reparations. For more info, visit laisforeveryone.com today or call 213-978-1845.
Heard any other talk talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome forward. You are tapped into First Things First with Dominique DiPrima. I am your guest host for today. I'm Dr. Sholanda Sunshine Crawford, and I am in with Dr. Gloria Morrow for a very enlightening conversation. Dr. Morrow, before we paused for the break, I love this discussion that we're in. We're basically talking about the integration of spirituality and psychotherapy. And it's wonderful to sit with fellow clinical psychologists and unpack these things from your perspective, from your purview. What have been some of the challenges that you've come up against in this work that you're doing in the faith community as it relates to mental health and the faith arena?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is having enough people who look like and also share the cultural world of the parishioners available to send them to.
Yeah. Yes, that
because
is my biggest challenge. Yes.
Yeah, because when I go and I share my own story and I talk about the importance of good mental health, and I do some very practical things for people to look at, because sometimes people think we talk way above their head and too clinical. But when I talk about things like, the person is not cleaning up their room for days at a time, isolating, just those common things that suggest that your health is not good, they're ready to get help. But then when it comes time to refer them, we are limited. And also we're limited financially, because even if they have insurance, sometimes the copay is prohibitive and it's hard for them to get help. So I keep encouraging our community of professionals to consider doing pro bono work or low-fee work or sliding scale work, so that we can at least try to accommodate the people once we do get them to want to seek help from us.
Absolutely. And to your point, it is so difficult finding, it's difficult for me as a professional in the field to find colleagues to recommend to. So imagine how difficult. And I think I'm hypersensitive about referrals, because I understand the skepticism in the community. I understand where folks are coming from. But I also, you tapped on another. When you are engaging in the work, I hear you saying that you don't mind sharing of your own personal experience, things you've tried and things that have worked. I have found sharing my experience, of course, with wisdom and professionalism, considering the person I'm talking to, the setting I'm in, etc. I have found that that can be, the personal testimony can be more impactful inside of ministry than the Bible. Not saying, I'm not watering down the power of the Bible. I'm saying that personal experience can be the prerequisite that leads you into openness to hear then what saith the word of God. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Are you picking up what I'm putting down here?
Yes, I got you. Here's how I take it. I'm saying the same thing you're saying it, but a little different. I believe that the folks that sit in churches every Sunday, they know the Bible.
Every Sunday,
that's not something right. So that's not something that I feel like I have to come and necessarily teach them. But what I want to teach them is the fact that we all suffer.
Yes.
And there's no need for you to continue to suffer in silence.
Right.
And this is what I had to do to break the silence. And that's the ingredient. When I do that every single time, Dr. Crawford, the folks line up, they want to talk to me about where they can get help,
Yes.
Are you taking new clients?
Yes.
If not, who can I talk to?
Yes.
Because I've given them something that they have not heard, and that is that we all have gone through struggles. I don't care where we are. And when those pastors that I counsel and their families, when they stand up in that pulpit and they tell people, I'm in therapy, it breaks the chain.
It's the transparency, and I love that you highlight that point because we all have a thing in common, and you've hit it. You've hit the nail right on the head. We all get the life experience, and in this life experience there comes pain and trauma. Trauma is just how we respond to our painful events. But I have found there to be three things that keep us all stagnant and paralyzed in our growth, spiritual or otherwise. And that's guilt, shame, and the fear of judgment of other people. To me, those are spiritual devices that keep us stuck. And so if we can stand up as spirit or ministry leaders and say, hey, this is my experience, I'm in these trenches with you, then you're right. There will be, if more faith leaders can do that, there will be people lined up trying to figure out where they can get that same boldness, that same freedom.
Right. Right. And the churches that do that are those churches you're talking about that you saw in your study where people are open to therapy because somebody has given them permission. And that's what has to happen from the body of Christ. We have to say, you have permission to seek help outside of this place. And in fact, I'm going to help you. So that's what I do. I work with Mount Sinai Church of LA, right around the corner from KBLA. And I'm a consultant for them, and I kind of direct their counseling ministry. And we don't do counseling at the church, but what we have done is we have a consultation form that people complete, and then they say they need help. I review it, and then I find people to work with them who are culturally responsive. And we're working on our own resource guide so that we are talking to people who will help them and people who will also provide pro bono services or sliding scale fees.
Absolutely.
Those kinds of people, because people need that. And that's what we have to understand the impact of the church on the community. The church used to provide everything. And so we should make sure that every facet of life is incorporated in churches so people can get what they need when they go there. Yes, they get the Word of God. That's important. You got to have the Word of God. That's important. But you also need to be able to get a meal if you need it. You ought to be able to have a resource for housing. You ought to be able to have resource for medical and mental health. That's what the church should be about. So when those things are in operation, it works.
We talk about the church being the beacon. You could not be more correct, because the community, me as a person, I do need more than the word. The word is the meat, but then I need everything else to go along with that.
Yes.
And if we're talking self-care, then that is my full self. So we also, if the church is going to be the beacon, then the church also has to be open to deal with every aspect of me. In other words, nobody has a problem praying about and giving medical referrals for, let's just say, high blood pressure or diabetes.
Right.
And we're okay with insulin and reducing sugar and stress and salt in our diets, the prescriptions but when it comes to a mental health issue, that's where we kind of get stuck, because we're told we connect mental health issues with lack of faith. And so I think that causes the barrier. So now I feel like I can't I can't go and seek help for this life issue that I'm having.
Right.
Because there may be judgment from the very place that I'm supposed to find spiritual freedom and liberty in. My question for you is, what do you think is the biggest barrier for openness, not from the people in the community, but for the faith leaders themselves? What is blocking them from their openness and transparency from pulpits and platforms?
Well, I think you've said it. We've created a system, a very hierarchical system as it relates to faith leaders, and they have to appear blameless. They have to appear perfect. They have to appear godlike. This is the problem. To lower themselves. Well, or they think they would be lowering themselves if they had to talk about their own stuff. And that's why so many in the faith community who are leaders are in trouble, because they don't feel like they can really unpack the things that are going on with them. Because I'm the man or woman of God, I can't, be human. Well, you are human, and you are susceptible to these challenges. And in fact, we do know that a lot of church leaders, and I've worked with many of them, from the ones with mega churches all the way to ones with 20, 30 members. And it's all the same. You're people. We are people. We have experienced traumas in our lives. Even if they have a mega church, that doesn't mean they always had a healthy mama and daddy, or that they felt good about themselves, or that they are unscathed from mental health issues.
Here's what people would be surprised to know. They would be those that have had traumas with an S, and mental health issues, and struggling, disparaging past lives. Those are our most powerful and influential testimonies, and therefore change agents. That's what what people don't understand is the checkered past has the most powerful opportunities to bring about change in the positive direction into communities. I love this conversation, as I knew I would. Dr. Gloria. I knew it. So if you don't mind, please hang with me. Listen, folks, you're listening to First Things First with Dominique DiPrima. I'm sitting in for her. I am her guest host, Dr. Sholanda Crawford, and there's more to unpack. Hang with me. We're going to get at it when we come forward.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste, so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Become a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Get free and confidential information on immigration and citizenship. Visit lapl.org/NAI to find your nearest library, or call us at 213-228-7390. That's lapl.org/NAI or 213-228-7390. And start your path to becoming a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Call 213-228-7390 or visit lapl.org/NAI.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys.
Let's take our auntie to the swap meet.
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
History in the making. Come visit the Get Me Expo, June 22nd, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Compton, California. The first ever lowrider, custom cars, and bikes manufacturing expo. Come learn the economics behind these multi-billion-dollar industries. Hosted by legendary car builder T.J. Lofton. Panel discussions from car parts to health. Come network. Tickets and vendors go to getmeexpo.com. GITME expo.com. Become a sponsor. Great vibe. Getmeexpo.com. See you there.
What does it take to take on Alzheimer's? Awareness that nearly 2/3 of those diagnosed are women, including Black women. Dedication to lowering your risk by eating healthy and monitoring blood pressure. And confidence to talk to your healthcare provider about screening and early detection. You have what it takes to take on Alzheimer's. Learn about signs and screening at takeonalz.com. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
First love takes patience, but we couldn't take it, so I went away in one night.
Welcome forward. You are tapped into First Things First with Dominique DiPrima. Today is Mindful Monday, and I am your guest host, Dr. Sholanda Crawford of the Dr. Sunshine Show, right here on KBLA. Talk 1580, my show airs on Sunday mornings from 8 to 9. Now, here's something interesting. I, over the break, talking to Kamal, I keep seeing the phone lines going off, and then he's hanging them up. And I'm like, what's going on, Kamal? He shares with me that there are 3 or 4 calls asking who is the artist that I'm playing in the transitions. That is Dr. Morrow. I'm like, do you want to join our conversation? It's like, no, who's that playing in the background? So that is Maddie Milan. And we've played snippets from both the sophomore and junior EPs. You can find it, M-A-D-I, Milan, M-A-L-O-N. You can find it on all streaming platforms. Thank you. I'm glad to introduce you to some music on the new and smooth tip. So let's get back to this discussion, Dr. Morrow. So we're discussing what do we think, or what do you think are the barriers that prevent the faith leaders themselves from being transparent? And I think you're saying it's their own trauma. Yeah?
Yeah, I think that they've had trauma, but I do think that pride and some of the same things that keep the congregation from getting help play out for them too. And what we tend to do as people in leadership, we stay busy. And so being busy covers up a multitude of issues for them. So if I'm busy, I don't have to think about how I really feel, but my behavior is saying something else, because when you have people from pulpits or from podiums who are, being very mean-spirited, acting out, even some of the sexual acting out, that can sometimes be a reflection of how a person is doing mentally. It usually is. It usually is, because why would somebody want to give up all they have worked to acquire, and they love God, and they're displeasing him by their behavior and their families, what they're putting them through. So how would anybody do that unless you are not well mentally? There's something not right.
So why are we not talking about sexual indiscretions in a way that tackles it and approaches it head on? Why are we not talking about it in church? And I say that because why are issues surrounding sex and sexual, indiscretions, why is it taboo? Isn't the church the place that we go to find help with everything that we're dealing with in life? All issues of life. Isn't that where we should be turning to? Why are we turning a blind eye to the most important, difficult issues to unpack and detangle on our own? Why is that? Why do we turn them back to the devices that led them there in the first place?
Right, because what has happened, because we demonize everything and not try to find solutions as to why people do what they do. And that's a huge problem, because if I know I'm going to be judged for having these thoughts or even engaging in these behaviors, I am not going to talk about it. And then it gets worse. I did a women's retreat one time, and I had a message all set up for them. Wow. And then God shook it up and said, I want you to do this. And what he asked me to do was to have people write down in secrecy things that are causing them to feel depressed and worried.
Okay, give us the inside scoop. Come on.
Yes, and so they all did it and put it in a basket. They didn't have to put their names on it.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple came out, and I selected things out of the basket, and then finally I got this one, and I opened it up. This woman says, "I've been having an affair for 20 years."
Woo, 20 years.
And now remember now. This was confidential. Nobody had to give their names. But when I started reading it, then the woman started bawling out loud. So now it's out here.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of her getting help, because it didn't matter, because God had set it up. And the point I'm making is we've got to start making our faith community feel like a safe community where people can be transparent about what's really going on with them. But if I tell you what's going on with me and you tell everybody else, or you judge me harshly, I'm not going to tell. I'm not going to talk about it. And I'm not going to change, because I want to keep this in secrecy.
Well,
we've got to start making it open.
Yeah, you just hit the culprit you just knocked the culprit right upside the head. It's I'm afraid that you're going to judge my issue. And I think that if we can get in, and this is to all faith leaders and friends, I'm going to take it away from the church for a minute. I'm going to take it to people, friends. If you are a friend of a friend of a friend to someone who's a friend of a friend of a friend, then the most therapeutic thing that you can offer inside of that relationship is an openness for transparency. That's where reformative work comes from. I'm not judging you. Guess why, Dr. Gloria? Because I can't. I have too much going on in my own stuff. Come on.
Yes.
If we had more time, I could run a whole gamut and list of things that I was once shameful about, and I'm going to go further, guilty of, because guilt is what I've actually done. So not everyone is a victim of circumstances. Some of us have caused our circumstances, and I think when you're approaching things from a healed position, and that's the key, you can be transparent. I think one of the barriers and challenges for we're to faith leaders, people in ministry, and then let's just trickle it on down to everyday life, is we are not healed And so therefore it's difficult to stand before anyone because it's still difficult for us to stand in the mirror and look face on at ourselves. We haven't reconciled inside ourselves some of the hurt, the pain, and the trauma. But if we can make it our personal mission to become healed people, then I think we can heal people. Because the same way hurt people, healed people heal people. Now, I am the co-pastor at the Experience Christian Ministries here in Los Angeles. And we make it a point to be transparent. We make it a point to do pro bono community, work and try to reach and affect the people. But it has to come from a place of healing. So don't you think a homework for all listeners today is to find the step one road to healing?
Absolutely. You have to work on yourself.
Self-work.
And I think
self-care
so many of us are walking around judging other people, creating a standard for other people to live by that we don't even live by for ourselves. So my greatest work is the work I do on me.
Absolutely. And it's the work that you do on you is reflected inside of everyone that you therefore help and come in contact with. With that, Dr. Gloria Morrow, thank you so much for taking a moment out of this crazy schedule of yours to drop these nuggets. I pulled out a silver bucket to drop your gold nuggets into. So I feel like I have a wealth of information this morning. I'm hoping the same for all the listeners. We just have a few seconds left in the hour. Can you just quickly, briefly give us where I can find you? Where can I find you?
You can go to all of the outlets, Gloria Morrow, and look me up. And I have a website called A Brand New Me with drg.com. A Brand New Me with drg.com.
So you can find Dr. Morrow right there, A Brand New Me with Dr. G. You can also find me, good people, Sundays right here on KBLA Talk 1580 from 8 to 9 and on all of your streaming platforms, especially Instagram. I love to kick it with you all on Instagram. I'm at the DR Sunshine Show, the DR Sunshine Show, also the DR Sunshine. I am Dr. Sunshine. Thanks so much for having me today on First Things First with Dominique DiPrima. Coming up next, you know it, it's the Tavis Smiley Show with the one and only Tavis Smiley himself. So make sure you continue to tune in. There's a whole lot more that we have going on this third anniversary of KBLA Talk 1580. Thanks so much for listening, for staying tapped in, and for tuning to KBLA Talk 1580. Have a good one.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us on a Monday, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Now, here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden is scheduled to meet with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg today at the White House. Stoltenberg has also meetings scheduled this week with Secretary of State Antony Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. In addition, he'll meet with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, as well as members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Senate NATO Observer Group. We're now learning a member of the NFL Kansas City Chiefs is finding himself in more legal trouble this offseason. Defensive lineman Isaiah Buggs was arrested for the second time in a month after being booked on a domestic violence and burglary charge in Alabama Sunday morning. The 27-year-old African-American player was released on a $5,000 bond. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Is this the This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NBA Finals are back in action.